Hi, this is Author Robinson Jr. I am the creator of PowerfulInterviews.com. I am the creator of AudioSecretsTrainingEvent.com. I want to welcome each and every one of you to this phenomenal video. In this interview, you're going to experience life-changing information that you will not find anywhere else. I have secured an incredible interview with a great friend of mine, international speaker, best-selling author, the mega millionaire, Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David, he generated millions of dollars in the financial services industry. So in this interview, you're going to hear exclusively how Patrick Bet-David built his business from scratch, and he generated millions of dollars in the financial services industry. Patrick Bet-David has interviewed phenomenal, successful business leaders from all over the world. People like James Worthy, that used to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. People like Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, and Steve Wozniak was actually business partners with Steve Jobs, and much, much more. So remember, this is not bullshit information. The correct information will change your situation. Wealthy people take advice from other wealthy people, and unfortunately, broke people take advice from broke people. But I love what the multi-billionaire Warren Buffett says. Warren Buffett says, the more you learn, the more you earn. So right about now, go get your pen and your pad, sit back and relax, and write down some notes. In this interview that I'm going to reveal to each and every one of you with my great friend, international speaker, best-selling author, mega millionaire, the phenomenal Patrick Bet-David. This interview is going to change your life. So check it out.
Today, I have a wonderful person on the call, and he's a great friend of mine. His name is Patrick Bet-David. And for those that don't know Patrick, let me explain to each and every one of you about this incredible, phenomenal man. Patrick Bet-David is a successful startup entrepreneur, emerging author, and popular video blogger committed to helping people get more out of life. Patrick takes complex ideas and converts them into simple life lessons. His intriguing perspective on opportunity is colored from his experience as a young immigrant from war-torn Iran. He has a true rags-to-riches story that saw him first serving in the U.S. military before breaking into the financial services industry. Before turning 30, Patrick started a financial services marketing organization, PHP, agency, one of the fastest-growing companies in the U.S. He is a phenomenal businessman, and he is the author of his phenomenal book, which is called Doing the Impossible, and that is an awesome, impressive resume. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the powerful Patrick Bet-David to the show.
It's good to be on with you, Arthur Robinson Jr. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's getting better each and every single day. How you doing?
I just feel better listening to you, man, if it's getting better every single day.
To everyone that's listening on this show, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Patrick Bet-David is going to break down layman's terms about wealth building principles. Is that correct, Patrick?
Certainly, absolutely.
Now, what I'd like to know, Patrick, and can you explain to the listeners in layman's terms, who is the phenomenal Patrick Bet-David? How long you been in your powerful industry, and what is your expertise?
Well, I started off, I was born and raised in Iran, lived there for quite some time. When the whole war happened between Iran and Iraq, and Khomeini passed away in June 3rd of 1989, we escaped Iran 6 weeks later. I was 10 years old at that time. We went to a refugee camp in Germany, lived there for a couple of years, then came to the States, went to school here, and then I joined the U.S. Army, was in the Army for a few years, and got out of the military, and then wanted to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I was this bodybuilder guy, and posters all over the room of bodybuilders and fitness, and that was my dream. I mean, I was the guy with the 1.8 GPA in high school who knew how to lift weights, and he liked math, And that was pretty much it. So I worked at Valley Total Fitness Health Club. And then from there, I met a young lady who introduced me to the financial services industry. I got started with Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, got my Series 7, 66, 31, 26 life and health, and just fell in love with the financial industry. And then from there, October of 2009, decided to start a company called PHP with some of our executives. And, we went from having 66 agents to now roughly 1,800 agents in 30-something states in a span of 6 years. So it's been a fun and wild ride for the last 6 years for us.
Now, I was looking at your impressive resume. Can you explain to the listeners what inspired you to write your phenomenal book, Doing the Impossible?
Well, I'm a firm believer of the fact that if you look at life as a mathematician, you'll be able to generally find solutions to problems. The great thing about math is, there's all these formulas to math. You have the Pythagorean theorem. You have all these things that you would sit there and say, solve for X and find the answer to what X is. And you and I would need to go through it, and eventually we would find out what X is. And for some of us, this is many years ago. For some of the listeners, it may be recent that they're going through this. But that's exactly how life is. There is a formula for practically everything in life. There's a formula for stuff that you personally can't control. Obviously, there's things that you definitely cannot control out of your hands. But for the most part, there's a formula for almost everything in life. So the moment you figure that part out and you start looking at life from a mathematician's perspective and you try to figure out the formula to it, the rest becomes pretty simple.
Now, you have a phenomenal book which is called Doing the Impossible. Now, we have entrepreneurs and business owners that's on the show right now, and they are in the process of becoming a published author, Patrick. Can you explain to them in your own influential way, is it good to be a self-publisher, or should you get with a major publisher to promote your information product, which is your book? And would you say that your book is your business card?
I would have to agree with that. I highly recommend everybody start on a book, and I have a simple process that I teach the people I mentor on how to work on a book. First, collect quotes, 3-section parts, very simple. 1, collect quotes. 2, write down personal life-changing stories that you've had. Maybe a trial you went through, because that's your DNA. Nobody can buy that. It's yours. You own that. That's your trademark. So make a list of all the personal stories that you've had. It could be your upbringing. It could be a country you lived in. It could be, you were an athlete before. It could be, you had a marriage that didn't work out. It could be a parenting that you had a bad experience with a father or a mother. It could be when you were a kid you made some big mistakes. Whatever it is, that's your DNA. Write that down. And then the next part is writing down points of if someone wants to interview you and ask you, hey, what are the keys to success and what are some important things in life, what would those things be? Make a list of that, and then from there you can pretty much eventually turn it into a book. But going back to the question you asked about self-publishing, going through the route of getting your book published, look, this is the reality part of it. If there's a time frame on when you want it to come out, where you are urgent about getting the book to come out, you got to go self-publishing. If you're not urgent about when you want the book to come out, then you can go publish. If you want to be urgent about getting the book to come out, well then, I wrote 25 Laws for Doing the Impossible. 90 days later, the book was published, print, sold, and then all of a sudden we sold 150,000 copies.
Wow.
And now it's translated in 5 different languages: English, Romanian, Polish, Mandarin, missing one language, Russian. That's right, Russia. We've sold over 35,000 copies just in Russia alone. I'm not sure why, but I got a Russian following over there. To all my Russian friends, I love you for what you do with us. So,
wow.
But that's what I would say about the self-publishing and the publisher route. If you're patient and you're not in a hurry, you may want to go find yourself a literary agent. But I will tell you, today the publishing world has changed tremendously. I'm a little bit educated on this topic because my friend owned a publishing company that he just sold last year. and he is now our president of our company. He was a former CEO of GoTV, and he sold JamDad for $680 million a decade ago.
Wow.
So when you look at the publishing companies today, they are more looking at the author as the product than they're looking at the book. Because if the author doesn't have a following, they don't care how great the book is. They're only looking at it as a business sense. If you call and say, but you don't understand, I have a great story, they don't care. What they want to know is that you got 29,000 followers on Twitter, that you got 6,000 email subscribers, that you got 5,000 fans on Facebook. They want to know that you have a YouTube channel with 1,000+ subscribers. That's what they're looking for. They're no longer looking for, oh, this is a great story that we can do this with. They want to know that you're going to do majority of the marketing for about the first year. They're not going to do book signing for you. They're not going to do any of that stuff for you. The majority of it's going to be you. And then from there, if you prove to them that you have a following, loyal following that wants to buy from you, then they'll decide to publish your books for you.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Yes, I see a lot of big publishers where they're actually looking at your social media platform, and if you have a big, huge following on the social media platform, then they're willing to back you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have a phenomenal company, and you convey a lot of underground value to entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, speakers, and seminar leaders all over the world. Explain to the listeners, Patrick, what is the best advice that you have ever received?
What is the best advice I've ever received? Well, that's a good question. I remember many years ago I was at a meeting out into the financial industry, and I wanted to compete because I was a guy with no market. I had just gotten out of the military, and all my market were guys who were same age as me, which was 21, 22. I got into the industry at 22 years old when I was 37, the day before 9/11, and none of my market has money. My dad works at a 99-cent store. My mother's back in Iran. They got a divorce. I'm not around the Ivy League kids, so to find money is not the most easiest thing to do. And I learned from one of the mentors many years ago. He said there's generally two reasons why you and I are not winning. One of them is mechanical problems. The other one is identity problems. Let me explain each. Mechanical problems is you don't know how to close. You don't know how to sell. You don't know how to persuade. You don't know how to present. You don't know how to connect. You don't know how to build rapport. You don't know how to present a product to somebody. You don't know how to get into a market. You're not a good finder. You may be a good closer, but you're not a good finder. You're not good at, selling through people and getting referrals. So you can generally make a list of mechanical issues that you have, and most people think it's mechanical reasons why you don't make a lot of money. But I will tell you, the other part that he explained was your personal identity. And when he explained the personal identity, I asked him, what do you mean by that? He says, look, people will generally do business with people who they believe they belong in that area. I used to take a lot of my guys, and I would say, listen, you want to know if people really think you're money? He says, I think I'm money, I think I'm this, I think I'm that. Really? You really think people think you're somebody that they should do business with? Yes. Okay. You think you're worth $500,000 your income? I do. You think you're worth $250,000 your income? I do. No problem. Let me take you on an exercise here. So I put him in the car, and I would drive him up to a Ferrari dealership, okay? Now, I just bought a Ferrari, so I have a Ferrari 458, and, I test drove this. I went to the headquarters of Ferrari, and I wanted to know what it looks like. I had a 3-time world champion in Ferrari, Maranello, when it was raining, to teach me how to drive this 458, 167 miles an hour. The videos on YouTube. It was a pretty intense experience. So I'm a big Ferrari enthusiast. So I took him to a Ferrari dealership. And he said, why are we here? I said, well, you're going to find out why we're here. I said, okay, let's walk in, and I want to know if you can fool the salesman to believe you can afford a Ferrari. He said, what? Wow. I said, I want to know if you can fool the salesman that you can afford a Ferrari, and based on how he treats you, you will know if you can or not. He says he starts getting nervous. He's like starting to, shake his hands himself, and he's kind of starting to shake a little. I said, let's go inside. And we go inside. And you see automatically. The car salesman comes in, looks them up and down. They look at the shoes you're wearing, your belt, your pants, your posture, your eyes, the way you walk. And all of a sudden, they paid no attention to him. He walked around. The moment someone talked to him, he stuttered. Then we got back in the car, and I said, you don't believe you belong in a Ferrari yet. That's the problem. You have an identity issue. Then we went to look at a $4 million home. I said, real estate agents who sell $4 million homes, these are not regular people. They study body language. They know who has money, who doesn't have money. Let's see if this guy can read you well. So we went to a $4 million home open house, and we walked around. The real estate agent looked him up and down, shook his hand, learned from his handshake, learned from his body language. This guy cannot afford something like this. Boom. Attention to the next person. Walked away from him. I said, until you start believing that you are worth people doing business with, until you fix your identity issue, nothing's going to matter. I know a lot of people who mechanically are very sound, but their identity is not up there. They don't make it to the next level. So how do you fix your identity? I've read over 1,000 books in my life. If you look at my bookshelf in my office, I have a custom bookshelf that says read. Several of my videos, if you watch, you'll see the read on it. I'm looking at it right now as we speak. I am a byproduct of it right now. Yeah, I'm a byproduct of studying philosophers. I'm a byproduct of studying generals, former minds, great minds, business people, leaders, executives. And so the way you fix your identity is by feeding yourself constant information, valid information. I'm not talking about reading 50 Shades of Grey. That's not reading a book. That's nonsense. I'm talking about reading real, valuable books that bring value to you on how you can take yourself to the next level. And generally, when you work on books too, and you make a list of identity, you make a list of mechanical, you will generally find yourself going to the next level if you can be very honest with yourself. That would be one of the keys to success I would suggest.
Well, I love reading, and for some people, reading is a lost art today.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Now, I know that I love what Warren Buffett says, the more you learn, the more you earn. From your own experience, Patrick, can you explain to the listeners, what do billionaires and millionaires do on a consistent, regular basis that unfortunately broke entrepreneurs just don't do?
Well, you know, it's so interesting you brought up Warren Buffett, and then you asked me this question. Warren Buffett, they asked him, they said, if you could have any invention, what would it be? He says, to be able to read faster, to be able to feed my mind information faster. Warren Buffett's partner, his name is Charlie Munger. Mm-hmm. Charlie Munger wrote a book, I think it's called the Charlie Munger Almanac or something like that. It's a book I highly, highly recommend. Let me look it up. Charlie Munger Almanac. There you go. Poor Charlie's Almanac. I highly recommend this book because it's got so much wisdom in it. Charlie is worth about $1.7 billion. And he talks about the same thing about wealth creation, et cetera, et cetera. In his book, when you read it, there's a concept that Charlie and Warren Buffett talk about regularly, and that was inversion. And what inversion is, in the book, when they interview his kids, Charlie Munger's kids, they ask the kids to say, so how was it to have Charlie Munger as a father? Just tell us some stories about him. And the kids said, look, there wouldn't be a single day or night that our dad wouldn't be at the dinner table talking to us about somebody he knew that made a very big mistake in their lives, that they could have been somebody very special, but they made a big mistake in life. So what Charlie Munger was famous for, instead of talking about the keys to success, Charlie Munger would generally talk about the complete opposite. It was the keys to failure. He would talk about the keys to failure. He would talk about why people make the big mistakes. He would talk about why people go out there and make something that they were on track for doing something special with their life, then all of a sudden, boom, that one mistake they made, the rest is history. And so if you would ask me that question, you would say, what would you say it is? I would tell you, start-stops hurt you. And start-stops are when you're on your way to momentum and all of a sudden you make a big mistake. What is a big mistake? Well, a big mistake is Could be you picked up wrong habits. A big mistake could be you stopped exercising. You stopped taking care of your health. A big mistake would be you start thinking, the God syndrome. You start thinking you're God, and you start thinking nobody helps you. You start thinking you did it all on your own, and there are no mentors that advised you. And there was nobody that sat down and shared things with you. You start becoming arrogant. You start thinking you're just that special and, too special for anybody to even have a chance to meet with you. Forget about the average guy that's building a business. And start-stops will kill you in this business. And the other part is it's a very simple thing. It's just showing up. I started working out at 14 years old, and my philosophy is very simple. I will work out 3 times a week. No matter what, I find a way to exercise 3 times a week, but that's been the case since 14. And I think a lot of times we're looking for a quick fix, or we're looking for something to do right now. And, as much temptation as we have with that, there's nothing like showing up on every single day and just performing on every single day.
Wow. Now, you mentioned the phenomenal Charlie Munger, and I know he's business partners with Warren Buffett. So basically, both of them are value investors?
Yes, they are. They are value investors. Absolutely they are. They can't stand technology. They're not technology people. They know what they know. They know what they don't know. They're shareholders of Coca-Cola. They own Geico. They own the most simplest things that you would say, why do they own Geico? Well, it's insurance. There's a lot of money in insurance. Why Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola's already been around for so long. Wouldn't they rather own Facebook or Groupon or Snapchat or all this other stuff? They're not fans of technology. They're more, like you said, value-based investors.
Now, Patrick, I know a couple of years ago, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion, so video is hot right now. Can you explain to the listeners the power of video, and should entrepreneurs and business owners, should they use video to expand their brand?
So I did a video 2 weeks ago, and Entrepreneur Magazine picked it up, and the video is called How to Stand Out on Social Media. Okay, how to stand out on social media. You'll see it if you go on YouTube and you type in how to stand out on social media as an entrepreneur. It'll pull up. And when I did this video, one of the things I talked about is imagine if you and I wanted to start a media company together, me and you. We decided to start a media company together, so we want to own our newspaper. We want to own our live broadcast. We want to own our own TV station. We want to own our own resume building company. We want to own our own, all these radio stations, all this stuff. We want to own it, okay? What would it cost us for us to start our own media conglomerate, to have our own magazine, newspaper, TV, live news, et cetera, et cetera? What would it cost? It would cost us a lot of money to do that, right?
True.
Well, today you and I can do that for free because TV is being replaced by YouTube. Millennials are watching more videos on YouTube than they are on TV. Today, live news is being replaced by Periscope. Nowadays, Donald Trump introduces his new tax plan on Periscope. The presidential candidates are going around using Periscope because it's live news. You can be anywhere. Somebody can see where you're at. Was that on top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris a couple months ago, and I turned on Periscope, and I said, I'm on top of Eiffel Tower in Paris. Within 30 seconds, 2,000 people logged on just to see what I was doing on top of Paris on the Eiffel Tower. It was insane. So we have Periscope. Then we have radio has been replaced by podcast, TV by YouTube, news by blog. I can go through the whole list of things that we have.
Yeah, Meerkat as well.
That's right. They have Meerkat as well that don't use us a lot, and some of the guys use a lot. But, some use Meerkat, some use Periscope. But generally what it's getting to is you got to pick 1 or 2 platforms and work on that platform. If you're more comfortable in front of the camera, well, then do videos on YouTube. If you're comfortable with your voice, well, then you do radio. If you're a great writer, well, then you write blogs. If you're it doesn't matter. It needs to be something that is your strength. Some people are not comfortable to be in front of the camera. Well, then you're a better writer. You write. Some people are better on podcasts because no one's looking at them and they're loose, and you can be wearing a tank top and briefs and you're doing your interviews. Well, then that's great. That's what you do. But you got to pick one of those platforms to do. But if you think YouTube, if you take YouTube likely, videos likely today, you are going to be left behind if you don't get some kind of a platform going on YouTube today. If you're the type of person that's in front of camera, it's so easy to start something today. I can't say how many people I've done business with just through my social media connection, especially my YouTube channel that I have. If you type in Patrick David, my channel would come up. It's called Valuetainment. You'll see it all over YouTube. We get so much business just through our YouTube channel.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
I know that the speaking industry is a $780 billion industry, so it's huge right now. And we have entrepreneurs and business owners that are thinking about pursuing a professional speaking career. Patrick, can you explain to the listeners, when you're starting out as a professional speaker and you're speaking on other people's platforms, should they speak for free or should they drop their public speaking fee when they're starting out as a professional speaker?
That's a great question, and I have a complete different view on this. So, you may or may not agree with this, but I'm going to exactly how I view speaking. I generally, myself, I don't hire speakers. Okay, we just have hired a speaker to come and speak at our event. Okay, we've had Steve Wozniak I hired. He was expensive. We had David Walker, Worthy, Robert Greene, et cetera, et cetera. We've hired Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins. I could go on. Our list is long. I generally don't hire any speakers unless if I know they were successful in a completely different business. I don't. There's a gentleman who he's constantly sends me messages every time I book somebody, and he says, I can't believe you booked him. I can say the same thing he says for a quarter of the price. I said, yes, but you haven't done what he's done for a quarter of the price. So I want people who have won in an area. So if their expertise is because they read 17 books and they're, just saying what those 17 books taught them. They're coming from a place of experience, and that's generally who I like to pay to hear. That's generally who I like to listen to. So my number one is, before becoming a speaker, go have massive success as an entrepreneur. The Bush family, they wrote a book called 41. And one of the rules they have in the Bush family that their great-grandfather taught everybody before they get into politics, and this is very similar to Kennedy's, this is very similar to a lot of these families, is make your money first before you run for public office. That's their rule. Don't run for public office before you make your own money to protect your kids' education, your retirement, and your family, then run for public office. Once you do that, then run for public office. I take that same philosophy with business. Before you decide to go and speak, go win big. So when you're getting up on the platform and speaking, everybody is listening to you because you're coming from a place of experience rather than just being another person that wants to be a speaker.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And this is an incredible interview. I appreciate you coming on my show today.
I appreciate that, Arthur.
Now, Patrick, I see your YouTube videos, and you have a phenomenal presence. And when you speak, people listen. Now, when you get into the rim as a professional speaker, and when you get off the platform and people, go to the back room and they rush your product table, should entrepreneurs and business owners have a high-tier product and a low-tier product, but should they just have a high-tier product when they're speaking on the platform so people won't be doing any type of cafeteria selling?
Yeah, so look, rule number one of sales, give three options, whatever those three options are. When we worked at Valley Total Fitness and we sold memberships, we sold three types of membership. Lowest one is one gym. You only get to go to one gym. It's the cheapest one. Second one, you get to go to all gyms. Third one is you get to go to all gyms and you get 4 personal training sessions and 2 months of private supplement. So generally, I like 3 choices. Right now, when we sell in...
Yeah, y'all.